All right.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another Three Geeks conversation. Today we are joined by Chris Bartlett. Chris, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me, guys.
Absolutely. So the question I like to ask everybody is, where are you from originally?
Originally, I was born in California, grew up half my life in Arizona and the second half in Northern California, and now I live here in Los Angeles.
Awesome. And so
Yeah.
what made you want to be an actor? Did you stumble across it? Like, what was your journey?
What I wanted to be an actor. Really, in 1983, I saw a documentary called The Making of Star Wars. It aired on television after Return of the Jedi was in theaters, and I saw all the work that the people were doing behind the scenes, and it just made me feel like, wow, I want to make fun things for people to watch too, tell fun stories, and that was it. But I didn't become an actor until I was 36. So I figured that, you know, I'll never be able to be an actor, so I'll just enjoy it from afar. But when I was about 30, I I started building costumes, like you call cosplay now. Back in 2000, it was just kind of costuming. And and so I would go to conventions and wear the costumes that I built, and I would, play these characters that were, Star Wars characters, but characters that I tried to make them feel real. And it was during that time that someone in a galaxy far away saw a clip of me doing that, and I got an email to come in for an audition. But that was when I was, like I said, 36, and then I wasn't regular on television until I was 48. That was
So
in The
tell us
Mandalorian.
about pitching Lucas. Like, how do you get involved with that?
How did I get involved with?
Pitching Lucas?
Oh, there was a film, a fan made film called Pitching Lucas years and years ago that we were just getting together. We had a great story about what it might be like to pitch new stories to George Lucas. This was probably in 2004 or 5 maybe. And it was a great story where George is sort of reclining on his dais, like, kind of like Jabba the Hutt, I guess, and he's listening to pitches. And so different people would come in and pitch different ideas. There was Chip's replica, with two speeder bike cops racing through patrolling the forest of Endor, and others. And I played C-3PO in a suit that I built, and I'm trying to remember that was a long time ago. That was, but anyway, it was just getting together with friends and telling fun stories in this galaxy. How did I get
So how
started
did
in that? I was friends of mine made it, so they asked me to come join.
Well, you played C-3PO in it, I noticed, and it seems like a consistent thing. You were able to do C-3PO for a long time and do a bunch of fun things with it. Like, that's so cool. How did you, I guess, stumble into being a C-3PO, or how did that kind of come about?
Well, like I said, I was playing characters, and I built my own C-3PO costume in 2003 or 2000, yeah, 3. It took 3 years to build one. And then in 2006 I was cast with the events department with Lucasfilm to portray C-3PO in ways that were in other places that were not the films, and commercials and things like that. And during that time, I never talked about it. I never did any interviews or anything, so it was very under the radar situation. And I, I don't know. I was just doing the work and answering the phone,
Yeah.
and that was great. But it was really because I was doing something that I loved, which was trying to make a character feel real, and it was noticed. And so then they gave me a call, and that's for any actor, where you're doing what you love doing, and then they call you, that's a dream come true. So every live action appearance of C-3PO on television over the last 19 years has been me, and I did do one pickup shot for The Force Awakens with a red arm, and then it's when we started making Mandalorian, it sort of exploded into playing 19 other characters.
I wanted to ask you about that too. It's like you did a lot of different things on that show. Yeah, it was sweet.
Yes, 3 are non-droids, 17 are droids. I guess they recognize that I possessed a particular set of skills that was useful to them. But man, I like the non-droids were. I played an Imperial gunner, season 2 Mandalorian. I played the ferryman, who's in the very first scene in the first episode of Mandalorian, the snout guy with the goggles out on the ice calling speeders over. And then I also played the alien on the elevator in the awkward moment with Mando in the Book of Boba Fett. But the rest of them were all droids, and 2 of them were built by Legacy Effects, and the rest of them were built by myself and my team. For the show.
The story, your story is fascinating. You go from, seeing Return of the Jedi in the theater to being in a Star Wars fan film to actually being able to portray that character for real. And what was it like when you met Anthony Daniels? Because I assume you've met him before.
Yeah, we've performed together live a few times. We've also worked together on collaborating on several projects. Meeting him for the first time was he was very helpful with animation on performing this character, how the pieces all move independently, not like a human being, but arms are machines separate from the body, and the head is separate as well. And then he also helped me with the voice, so that I might be fluent in over 6 million forms of communication. I am C-3PO, human cyborg relations. Anyway, so he helped me with that too, and he's been lovely to me.
Thank you for doing that. I didn't want to ask, but I'm so very glad you did.
Yes. Yeah, there's a fun moment, sort of surprise moment on my Instagram, Chris F. Bartlett on Instagram. If you go look at that, there's a moment where he was previewing his auctions, all the things he was going to auction off from his collection. I had received an invitation like 1 or 2 days before, so I hadn't even known I was going to be going. They asked me to come, and he didn't know I was going to be there either. But there's this really fun moment where he's amazing at crowd work, right? He takes the microphone, he goes out into the crowd, and he's just so good at that. And he was looking for somebody who could do the voice with an English accent. But I was just there to be entertained and listen to his story, so I didn't raise my hand. I was just listening, and he asked somebody who knew part of the line but was not sure how to do the British accent, and so he moved on from him and said, "Anybody else?" And somebody behind me said, "Oh, Chris," and I said, I just sort of raised my hand just a little bit in case he saw it, and if he didn't, that's fine. But he did, and he, as he's handing me the microphone, I'm out of context for him at this moment. He doesn't. We're not supposed to be in the same room at that, at that scheduled time. And he hands me the microphone. And as he's handing me the microphone, I see that he is recognizing that, oh, we know each other, right?
Yeah.
And I said, "Did you hear that? They've shut down the main reactor. It will be destroyed for sure. This is madness." And he says, "Okay." And then the crowd responded positively, and that was fun. And then it goes on a little bit longer if you go look at the Instagram.
That's awesome.
So that was
That's
really
so
fun
much
moment. Yeah.
So I wanted to dig into your cosplay, if you don't mind, because how much of that translated to your actual production level droid work? You know what I mean? Did you learn a lot from it, or did you? I guess I'm speaking to all my cosplay fans out there. Like, hey, how close am I to the real thing when we get down to it? You know what I mean?
Yeah. The secret to effective cosplaying, I guess you could say, is to play the character and have the costume look good on you. So it's not so much that it's the exact measurements or down to the centimeter width or whatever, but if it looks right on you, proportionate and everything, and then you make an attempt to play the character, maybe you have the energy of this character, maybe you're a cold killing bounty hunter, or you're an upset protocol droid. If you're doing the movement, and maybe even you make an attempt at the voice, maybe you're just maybe you're a stormtrooper. All right, we'll check it out. That anything to add to the character, because you don't just want to be a person in a costume, or maybe that's enough. Some people that's enough, and that's cool, But if you want to be an actor, try playing the character in the costume, and it really makes a big difference, especially sort of erases any blemishes or imperfections in the costume. And to your question about how the costume build helped me in building stuff for the film,
if it did at all. Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I was building them for high mileage performances,
Got it.
as a lot of
Yeah.
cosplayers do, because they're wearing them, throughout the year, maybe every other weekend or something, and they're, building them for high mileage. So you don't want stuff to just be lightly glued together and it could fall off or whatever. So that really made, and this is all before 3D printing. So it had to, we had mold making and hand sculpting for parts and things like that. And they all needed to be really durable. So when I do my own stunts, which I do all my own stunts on these shows, I've got to sometimes fall on the hard ground, like with the case of one Jack over here in Obi-Wan Kenobi. I don't know if you can see that. That was one of the production heads that I used for the show. One Jack, I had to fall on the hard ground. And you see it on TV, it happens once. But when you're filming it, it's over and over and over and over. And you don't want cheap plastic costume to be busting apart. Now you can't do the stunt anymore. So I made them with materials that could withstand all of that, and it worked. So and I'm blessed to be able to have people on my team that are very close friends that I've known for years and years that I bring with me. And I had to figure out most of the stuff myself, but it's nice when I have experts who like maybe know how to rewire a set of eyes, or how to, I don't know, make a custom voice unit so that it sounds nice and clear and robust, but takes up minimal space in a voice amplifier. So yeah, I built them for high mileage performances, and that translated well to production.
So what is it like the first time you do C-3PO officially? Like, what's going through your head? I think Good Morning America, maybe Ant Farm were the first times, but like, what's going through your head during that process? Like, I'm finally here. Like, this is my life now. This is.
Well, each time you do it, it's just a one-time thing. You don't have the foresight of knowing how many times this is going to happen. It's just any actor, you're just doing it this one time. If you're cast in a role and you're going to be shooting for 2 days on a set, that's it. There's no like, you're going to be doing this for 19 years. And so I just treated every moment as the most special moment I could for this character and for my, personal, I don't know, work. The first time was actually McDonald's commercial where, being on camera. And that was funny. It was like, if you look up McDonald's Clone Wars, I think that will bring it up on YouTube. And it is C-3PO and R2-D2 with this young man who is a Jedi Padawan, and he's using the Force, and it's all about, a Happy Meal, and it was all tying into the Clone Wars animated show. So what was cool about that was I was on a real set, like a bridge of a spaceship, and everyone treated this character that I was portraying as famous as Elvis. I mean, it was so special to be part of that. And I never ever would do anything that would cast that character in anyone's mind as inappropriate, or doing anything that was out of ordinary or out of character. And so many times, yeah. So anyway, to answer your question, it was, I just treated it really as this could be the only time that I do it, and want to make the best impression for this character, and also for the the commercial we were doing. But I will tell you, Jason, the first time I was in a Star Wars narrative, which is a TV show or a film, was the first day on Mandalorian. Because before that, it was all commercials, or like the Oscars, or a Super Bowl commercial, or live appearance on a red carpet or something. None of those were like real narratives; they were appearances. And so when I stepped foot as the ferryman for the first time on that icy pier on whatever that planet was, I felt like all of my life of fandom flashed before my eyes, and everything slowed down, and my footsteps on the pier, and it's just, everything goes out at that point. And I was just so grateful and so thankful to be working with on such a special project with such talented, cool, creative people. And it was really, kind of an emotional moment. But you're a professional and you keep it all in and you just, do what you're there to do.
What's it like when Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau keep calling you back? That's got to be awesome. That's got to be a good feeling.
Yeah, well, it is. You're right. Working with, they're both super creative people who love Star Wars and very collaborative. So just to give you a little behind the scenes, when I was working on The Ferryman, I was doing the rehearsal with Dave and John and Brendan Wayne and the Blue Mithril Horatio Sands. All my lines are in English. In the show, he sounds like that. And all my lines were in English too, so you understand what he's saying and what he's doing. So I just brought a voice that I just made up. The worst they could say is, really not that bad. I what I did was I said, I thought maybe he's like an old Soviet used car salesman. Well, this speeder is brand new. We just arrived on the Spinwood freighter. And John says, "Oh, that's good. Let's cartoon it down a little bit." And I go, "Okay, yeah." So I'll make him a little sleepier, a little less cartoony. And then the discussion was, he's an alien. Would he speak an alien language? And I said, actually, yes, he would. We're our Star Wars fans are totally fine with subtitles, Greedo and Jabba the Hutt. It would be more appropriate for this character to be, anyway, that was the discussion we were having. And at the moment we were like, well, just keep going the way that you're doing and we'll figure it out later. And that's kind of been how it is with all my characters. I will learn all the lines, perform them with all the emotion that this character would on set. So when you're with your scene partner, it makes sense for them and it gives something for them to react to, which is, what all we're trying to do on set.
Yeah. Because you've kind of played multiple characters in the same series, is it hard to jump in and out of character? Like, have you ever had to have the same character, or I guess multiple characters in an episode? Does that make it harder or not really? Or?
Multiple characters in one episode, yes, but we're not filming those on the same day. So one day I'm an RA-7 Death Star droid, which is like a security camera. That's his energy, Or I might be C1D1 in Ahsoka, where I've noticed that there have been, in fact, HK class assassin droids, and there's one leaving right there, and just doing my duty. And so, but what's cool is, Justin, since I know all the characters that I play, I get to play them all with different personalities. I know how different they are. I might be a server droid in Garza's Cantina and Boba Fett, or maybe it's Q90, who is the bounty hunter droid in Mandalorian who flies Mando's ship. He doesn't like that. Or it could be a teacher droid. There's you can't see it. The teacher droid where Grogu is stealing the little blue cookies from his classmates. But they're all different. And I'll just give you a little insight, okay? Q90 is a bounty hunter droid who's a cold killing machine, who's the smartest guy in the room. And he knows that. He's also the best pilot of all of them. And he knows that. So that's a cool attitude to play. But he's a machine, so he looks like a praying mantis, Q90. And so I went home and looked at praying mantis videos to see, like, how would a praying mantis move? Maybe that's how I'll make him feel like. Their heads stand still while their bodies are moving, like this kind of thing. And so that's how I played him. The teacher is unlike C-3PO. C-3PO is always in the wrong place. He's never there. He's never programmed for what he's supposed to do, or he's never performing the act for what he's programmed, which is etiquette and protocol is my primary function. And so he's always often frantic and in danger, or flying a ship that he doesn't want to be flying. And so he has this energy that's very tight. The teacher droid, she is exactly where she's supposed to be. So her movements are all very, very calm. She's addressing the class. She's gesturing to the star map. And so everything is very calm because she's where she's supposed to be. the traffic droid in Book of Boba Fett who gets almost run over by the speeder during the crazy scooter chase. That he looks like he's 300 years old. He's all greasy and grimy. And the bolts are all loose. So I played him like, oh, my goodness, where are we? Kind of thing. So I get to play them all different because I feel like they're all my kids. So I know them all very well. Yeah.
So what's it like being at the White House as C-3PO meeting the president?
Well, it was a surprise, to be sure. I was thinking we were just going to Washington, D.C. I thought maybe it was Smithsonian or something. They didn't give us any details. So but then we were told it's at the White House, but we don't know the president's schedule or anything. And so I go to the green room, which is in the basement of the White House, and I suit up. And 2 local stormtroopers were there enforcing the imperial dictates. And so me and 2 stormtroopers get on the elevator, which is very small because the White House wasn't built with elevators, and they retrofit them and they're real small. So they're kind of like the cab of like the front seat of your car, front and back seat of your car, basically. So I get on, we're riding up, we're going to go meet service families, military families. And the floor of the car stops the floor early. And the gentleman who's operating the buttons, the doors open and there's standing President Obama. And he says, this is the first time I realized he's even going to be there. And he says, whoa, can I get on with you? And I said, why, yes, right here. And then he comes over and he says, boy, you guys look awesome. I said, well, I just had an oil bath. It felt so good. We had a little laugh. And then I'm supposed to get off the elevator. And I turned to the Lucasfilm representative as I'm getting off and leaving President Obama in the elevator right behind me. I said, why, he seemed quite friendly. Yes. And, like C-3PO said about another administrator of a facility. And then we had a little laugh and we left. And then we did our work. We're standing on the steps with Michelle and Barack Obama, passing out candy, R2 and I, and Chewbacca. And then the Secret Service comes over and says, C-3PO, you need to come with me and bring your little friend. And so we follow Secret Service and we go to this other private little Halloween party going on, which was the first daughters. And their favorite characters are C-3PO and R2-D2. So we got to have a nice little moment entertaining them and talking to them with their friends. And then afterwards, we go to have the picture. And the picture is with the president and his wife. And so we go to do that. And President Obama says, C-3PO, can you stand next to me? Oh, wait, can you say something to Michelle for me? And I said, Mrs. Obama, it's our pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation. And so we had this big laugh, and then we took this photo, and then it took about a year and a half to get the photo. But still, I feel like that's kind of a small club.
1,000% it's a small club. Oh my God.
What's that?
It's 1,000% a small club. I was agreeing with you. Very much so.
To be able to spend the evening with the President of the United States, passing out candy and taking a picture and entertaining the White House staff. And it was very fun and special. And any political stuff aside, no matter how a person feels politically, it's pretty special to meet the President of the United States, and also to be able to entertain them and make them laugh or make them feel like a little bit of their childhood's returning. And he's very warm and very friendly. He would say, a lot of times people who are casual Star Wars fans, they call this character CP3O or 3CPO, but not President Obama. He's a true Star Wars fan. He said C3PO like the first time, didn't get it wrong. So that's what it was like.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you have any improv training?
I've had to kind of do it on the job because a lot of the nature of the work is live. You're at these live events, so most of the improv was based on my knowledge of C-3PO and things he would say or he would likely say in any situation. And there was, for years, I went down on a contract with Lucasfilm, Star Wars weekends at Disney World. And from 2010 to 2015, if you met C-3PO, I had a hand in that. But people would come up and they'd wait for 2 hours in line and they'd come to meet C-3PO and have this very personal conversation, you know. And if, let's say they're wearing R2D2 t-shirt, C-3PO might say, why, hello, and what is your name? And you would say,
Justin.
I'm Justin. Oh, so Justin, very nice to meet you. And where are you from? And you would say,
India.
The Indiana, you said?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, can you hear me?
The Indiana system. I've never heard of this. Is this safe for droids? And then I might say, look, R2, he's dressed like you. My goodness. And then R2 would beep, and I would say, no, R2D2, those t-shirts are not available in quadruple extra large. Whatever. But we have this like really personal conversation, and then they would go away. And the thing with magic or illusion is, as an audience, we always want to explain it in the most complex way possible. Maybe, and it's really the best tricks are the ones that are can't be explained, that are so simple. And that's all it was. I was just doing the best impersonation I could do, because I know this might be the only time this family might, get to meet this character, and I wanted it to be unforgettable. And so that's to answer your question, Jason. The improv really came on the job over the years of doing it, and then, but I'm always training, so I'm always acting and working in workshops and things like that. So you're always working on it, but I'm sort of a, I don't know, silly person, so I'm always looking for fun or fun ways to say things or funny things to say, but yeah, I mean, like, do they make sense in a moment? Improv, yeah. I like to try. I love and admire the skill of improv and the people who do it well.
I got to ask about the other side of your coin, your video game work, graphic designer. How did you get into that?
Well, that was my real job. I've been a graphic artist, graphic designer for 20 years almost. And that was when they told me, you can't be an actor, you can't be a cartoonist, or you can't be a comic book artist because you'll never make any money. So you better think of something else. Then I thought of I went into graphic design, which really, that led to an incredible career of what we call UI and UX design, and became an art director and game designer as well in video games. So I worked on the first 4 years of War Games while at Epic Games. I worked on the latest ones were some Star Wars projects that have not come out yet. And I worked on the Tomb Raider reboots. I worked on Fortnite, and Call of Duty Modern Warfare and Warzone. My job was to all of the UI and UX for those games. And also I did some texture work, which is, the textures that wrap 3D models, buildings and vehicles and that kind of stuff too. So I made for an amazing career too.
That's awesome. I spent a lot of time in Gears of War, so I appreciate your service with that.
Me too. Okay, well, Justin, do you remember I think it was Gears of War 3 where you could collect things that you see on the ground. They'd have like a little shimmer, and you go over to them and you pop it up.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And it pops up on the screen, and it might be like a magazine cover, or it might be an ancient Locust tablet, or it might be anything like that. I designed how all of those look, and I also created all of the textures for all of those as well. So if you go back and play Gears of War, I think it was 2 and 3, maybe we had collectibles, but I can't remember. But yeah, that was one thing. If you guys played awesome.
Fortnite, my nephew has beat me in Fortnite a lot. If that answers any questions you have.
Well, have you? But But you've played it.
Yes.
Okay. So when your character goes into build mode, he opens up, you're looking over his shoulder, and he opens up a little blueprint, and then he starts building, right?
Yeah.
If you back up your character to a wall and then go into build mode, because the camera's compressed to right here, he opens the blueprint and you can see almost, it fills a lot of more of the screen. And if you look in the lower right corner, it says C. Bartlett, because I'm the artist who created the
Oh, that's
blueprint for
fun.
Fortnite. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's cool. That's
Yes.
super cool.
Yeah.
So
Thanks.
my last question for you, and then Justin, you can go. What was Shining Veil you worked on recently with Courtney Cox? How was that
Yeah.
experience? And was it different than your Star Wars experience? You played
It
creepy
was
goat.
very different. It was very different. I played a character, the villain of season 2, which is the creepy goat. He didn't have any other name other than Satan. And so the way that worked was I got a call from the production of Shining Veil. They said, "We know about your work on Mandalorian, and we would like you to come on." So there was no audition or anything. There was just a discussion about the nature of the scenes that I would be doing. Okay, and the scenes were kind of sensitive. And what I mean by that is there needed to be what we call an intimacy coordinator on set. All of these gestures made it seem like it was going to be way more graphic than it was, and it wasn't. What it is. Shining Veil is a dark comedy that pays homage to all the classic horror movies. So you might be watching an episode of Shining Veil, and the curtains will be the carpet pattern from The Shining, or in one of my scenes, it's an homage to a scene in Rosemary's Baby. So in season 2, I worked with Greg Kinnear and Courtney Cox and Mira Sorvino, and also the younger actors as well who play the kids. And I do a lot of standing and staring because the nature of the character is supposed to be very unsettling. But so while he didn't have any lines, he had a lot of action, creepy goat action. And so my role was a very intimate scene with Courtney Cox, and it was, I mean, I don't know if you've watched it, season 2, Shining Veil, but the scene, I don't know, this is probably a family show, but the scene was in this room bathed in red and smoke, and 13 women standing around with smiles strapped to their faces like this. And they're all supposed to be watching this sort of ritualistic, I don't know, creepy conception scene. And the director says, I didn't have any details. I'd been trying for weeks to get details about this moment, this scene, this big scene that they made such a big deal about. What is this going to look like? What's my action? Where's the camera going to be? And I couldn't get any details. And so so I just like to go on set. I don't like to stay in my trailer. I like to see the work happening, and I like to see creative people working and stuff. So I'm sitting there in my creepy goat suit, which is just kind of like a fuzzy, like a Cookie Monster kind of a suit, but brown and tan. And then the top is like this, the head is like this rotting taxidermy gone bad goat head. It's really, really gross looking. But I'm just Chris in the fuzzy suit. And so I'm standing there, and she goes, the director, who's this very tall, 6'2" Australian woman, says, all right, Chris, we're going to turn some stuff around. So we've got time. Let's run through your scene. You're going to be copulating with Pat, Courtney Cox's character. Let's see what that looks like. And I said, all righty, here we go, acting. And so, I start doing my thing, and she goes, no, you're supposed to be, you're supposed to be impregnating her. And I go, yeah, I know, I got it. So for whatever reason, I started doing this hula hoop action. I don't know. I'm just trying stuff here, you guys. And she says, no, you're supposed to be ing her. And I said, yeah, okay, I got it. So I'm just trying more things, whatever. I don't have any idea where the camera is going to be, or what we're seeing, what parts of my goat body we're going to be seeing, or hers, whatever. And so anyway, it just got really wild. And then she said, okay, I think that looks good. And I was like, which part of this looked good? The first part or the later part? Anyway, so I go back to my room. I'm trying to figure this out. I've got my room all to myself, so I kind of get on my goat hands and knees and trying to figure out physically what my action is going to be. And then there's Chris, door opens. Hi, this is Parv. He's the one of the co-stars in the show. He's going to share your room with you. And I'm like, oh, okay, great, come on in. And so now I can't really practice this because I felt all self-conscious, you know. And so I just was trying stuff on set, and then when you watch the scene, you just basically see the goat head going like this, and it's a great show. I love it because it's a haunting type show. If you like haunting a Bly Manor or any of the Mike Flanagan shows, and I loved it. I had a great time. It was so weird and funny, and when I came out of the shooting the scene, Mira Sorvino, a legendary, actor, goes, "Wow, Chris, that was really freaking creepy." And I go, "Thank you. Mission accomplished. I'm the creepy goat. I don't know if you know." Anyway, we had a great time. It's fun.
It's incredible. It's a lot of fun.
You'll have to watch it. It's on Amazon, streaming on Amazon.
I will.
Yeah, it's a perfect time of year to watch it. There's 2 seasons. It's a great show. So, but I was also on the Orville, which shocker, I played a robot, one of the Kalons, and that was really fun to work on that too with all the creative people who make that show. And then I was on Lego Masters. If you ever watch Lego Masters, it's a reality.
I've seen it. It's great.
Yeah, reality competition show where every week is a different theme for building Lego. And I'm season 1 of the US version on Hulu, I believe. C-3PO and R2-D2 come out and guest host the show with Will Arnett. There's a Star Wars episode, and so that was me in the suit and also doing the voice throughout the episode. Because, Jason, it was all improv. The whole thing. I'm with Will Arnett, who's like one of the kings of improv. And so we're all taught, but it's within Star Wars and within C-3PO. So it's very specific. And everything you walk around to the tables and you're talking about what they're building. They might be building the Ewoks battling stormtroopers on the forest moon of Endor and talk about that, What would C-3PO say? Well, he might, talk about battling the Empire is very challenging. I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
But, there's one moment Will Arnett brings a little Lego C-3PO, who, if you know Lego, they're like thick in the middle, which C-3PO is not. And he said, "Oh, look, it's a little you." And I said, "My goodness, he's a little wider, though." And he says, "Oh, yeah, he had a little too much oil." And C-3PO, who it's debatable whether he understands human behavior. Sometimes he says, "I am programmed to understand human behavior." And then he says, "I'm afraid I'll never understand human behavior." So I played it like that. Like I said, "Oh, that's a joke. Very funny." And, because he wouldn't laugh or whatever, or, maybe he'd be offended. I don't know. But anyway, I just played it lighthearted like that. And we did that through the whole show. You can watch the whole thing. It's really a lot of fun. So they also build their own droids on that show. So Lego Masters was a dream to do because I grew up with Lego. Another little tidbit is when the contestants see that C-3PO and R2-D2 are revealed and they come onto the show, that's literally the first time they knew we were going to be there. They had no idea. So all those reactions are very genuine. And that's really how I play every set. Is I come out in the full character because, if you're on a Star Wars set, there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff you're seeing. You're seeing camera people and lighting people and grip and crew and other actors and stuff, which are just human beings that are playing in this world. But if you see a droid wander out and he's notices the what is this? Yes, making a calculations here, on some control panel or whatever. Suddenly it feels like we really are in Star Wars, That's really what I am doing some character rehearsal there, but when they say, director says, "All right, Chris, you can just put on the suit. You don't have to put the head on, just come out and you can meet the cast and crew and everything, and then we'll run through rehearsals." And I tell my dresser, just do the whole thing. And so they they flip on the lights and the they bolt you all together and flip on the lights and the microphone. And I just wander out. I don't ask permission, you guys. I just wander out. Is this a droid maintenance facility? My goodness, where am I? R2, it is you. And then I rush over to R2, and then we all have this really fun moment instead of like, we're at work, And so I love doing that. That's the best part of being an actor, and also playing these characters who are so iconic. And it's a dream come true.
So you mentioned getting bolted together as C-3PO. How long does that process take, and what kind of goes into it?
It took about 53 years and 25 minutes. It took a lot of practice, different, tries and smoothing out some edges and combining some parts and stuff like that. So now it's down to about 20 minutes. It takes about 5 minutes to get out of it. Don't ask about the lobster ravioli, but that we figured, oh wow, you can get out of this pretty fast. So don't eat lobster ravioli before getting into one of these suits. That's all I'm going to say. Just because you're going to have to get out of it really fast.
That's rough.
Chris, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. Where can everybody find you online, and what's next for you?
Yeah, the place I'm at most is on Instagram at Chris F. Bartlett. I've got 2 other Instagrams that are car and motorcycle related. There's Bartlett Motorcycles. There's the Falcon van. I have a 1962 Ford Falcon van, window bus, that I have restored, and I drive around and take dumb pictures of it. So you can check out those. That's really where I am the most. I answer my messages there. And where can you see me next? I'll be coming to Milwaukee, the Southridge, I think it's the Southridge Mall, December 13th through the 15th, where I'll be doing signing and talking to fans and stuff. We've had a busy convention year, and it's just sort of winding down. So I think that's the last one of the year. And then I post stuff all the time on Instagram, some behind the scenes stuff, some acting stuff, some building stuff, like building props and costumes. And then otherwise you just have to watch for credits, I guess.
Awesome. Thanks again. I'll put the links to everything down below, everybody, and we'll talk to you soon. Like, comment, subscribe.
Thanks, you guys.
Ever notice how ads always pop up at the worst moments? When the killer's identity is about to be revealed. During that perfect meditation flow. On Amazon Music, we believe in keeping you in the moment. That's why we've got millions of ad-free podcast episodes, so you can stay completely immersed in every story, every reveal, every breath. Download the Amazon Music app and start listening to your favorite podcasts ad-free, included with Prime.